There's a reason some cars feel off for years without ever throwing a code. The computer thinks everything is fine. It's being lied to, and the part doing the lying is rarely broken, just contaminated in a way almost nobody checks. Most long-term engine problems don't announce themselves. They settle in quietly, year after year, until poor performance feels normal. Drivers adapt, mechanics replace parts, nothing actually improves. What almost no one considers is that the engine isn't malfunctioning, it's responding perfectly to information that has slowly gone wrong. Before we go further, lock this in. Which sensor do you believe causes the most hidden performance loss in modern cars? Comment your answer now. By the end of this video, you'll know whether you were blaming the right thing. 12. The pattern most people miss. When engines underperform, the usual suspects are always blamed first. Spark plugs, coils, injectors, fuel pumps. These parts are easy to see, easy to explain, and easy to sell. Mechanics replace them because customers expect something physical to be swapped. A new part feels like progress, but modern engines are no longer mechanical first. They are data-driven. Sensors do not usually fail in dramatic, obvious ways. They rarely short out or die instantly. Instead, they degrade slowly. They collect residue over thousands of miles. They get coated with oil vapor that nobody notices. They drift just far enough to mislead the system without triggering a warning light. The ECU does not question the data, it trusts it. If airflow looks low, it adds fuel. If temperature seems high, it changes timing. If load appears heavy, it protects the engine by pulling power. The engine itself may be perfectly healthy, compression is fine, fuel pressure is correct, spark is strong, but the instructions are wrong. That is why replacing mechanical parts often does nothing. The engine is not broken, it is being lied to, and most diagnostics never question the information source itself. 11. Air measurement sensors. Air is the foundation of combustion. Every decision the ECU makes begins with how much air it believes the engine is breathing. Mass airflow sensors sit directly in the intake stream, fully exposed. Over time, they accumulate microscopic layers of dust, oil mist from the PCV system, and residue from oiled air filters. This buildup is invisible to the eye, but devastating to accuracy. The sensor still sends signals. Nothing looks obviously wrong, but the readings slowly drift. The ECU begins compensating for air that is not actually there or missing air that really is. Acceleration feels flat, throttle response becomes delayed, fuel economy drops gradually, not suddenly, so drivers adapt without realizing it. Idle quality suffers first, then stalling appears during stops or cold starts. In most cases, the sensor is not defective, it is simply insulated by contamination. Manifold pressure sensors fail differently. They rely on clean pressure signals through tiny passages and vacuum lines. Carbon buildup, oil residue, or cracked hoses distort that signal. The ECU thinks the engine is under constant load. It enriches the mixture unnecessarily. Power drops and fuel disappears. Cleaning ports and restoring vacuum integrity often fixes problems that replacing sensors never touches. 10. Exhaust feedback sensors. Oxygen sensors are among the most misunderstood components in modern engines. They are often replaced by mileage alone, even when they are not yet failed. Contamination is the real threat. Burning oil coats the sensing element. Coolant vapor leaves deposits. Fuel additives create films that slow reaction time. The sensor still works, but it reacts late. The ECU waits for feedback that arrives seconds too slow. Fuel trims swing back and forth, trying to correct a moving target. Power delivery becomes uneven. The engine feels inconsistent, especially during steady cruising. Emissions creep upward quietly. Drivers rarely notice until inspection failure or fuel economy drops significantly. At some point, replacement is unavoidable, but many sensors die early because contamination was ignored. Visual inspection, leak repair, and early cleaning could extend their life dramatically. 9. Driver input sensors. Throttle position sensors translate driver intent into data. They tell the ECU how urgently power is requested. Inside many of these sensors are resistive tracks and sliding contacts. Over time, friction, dust, and oxidation create worn spots. The signal becomes unstable at certain pedal angles. This causes hesitation exactly where drivers notice it most. Light acceleration, merging, rolling starts. The engine surges or hesitates unpredictably. Drivers blame assume transmissions, torque converters, or fuel delivery, but the ECU is confused. It cannot reliably interpret driver input. When data becomes inconsistent, the system limits response to prevent damage. The car feels lazy or jerky because the computer is protecting itself from uncertainty. Until the signal path is cleaned or repaired, no mechanical replacement will restore smooth behavior. 8. Engine position sensors. Crankshaft and camshaft position sensors control timing. Without accurate signals, spark and fuel delivery lose synchronization. These sensors operate inches from rotating metal components in extreme heat. Oil vapor coats them. Fine metallic debris clings to their magnetic tips. As contamination builds, the signal weakens. The engine may stall when hot. Restarts become difficult. Misfires appear randomly and disappear just as mysteriously. Because the failure is intermittent, scan tools often show nothing. In many cases, cleaning the sensor tip and connector restores a strong signal. Removing metal shavings alone can make a dramatic difference. This is why engines sometimes run better after unrelated service. The sensor was disturbed and cleaned accidentally. No new part was required, just signal clarity. 7. Temperature sensors. Temperature sensors quietly influence everything. Intake air temperature affects fuel density calculations. Coolant temperature determines warm-up strategy, ignition timing, idle speed, and fan control. When these sensors drift, the ECU makes small but constant mistakes. Cold starts become rough because fueling is wrong. Fans cycle unpredictably. Fuel consumption rises slowly. Drivers blame weather or aging engines. But even a small temperature error compounds over time. The ECU is always correcting for a condition that does not exist. These sensors rarely fail completely, which is why they are ignored, but their influence is constant. Slight inaccuracies across thousands of drive cycles create major inefficiencies. Accuracy matters more than functionality. 6. Speed and load sensors. Vehicle speed sensors influence far more systems than drivers realize. They control shift timing, fuel cut on deceleration, cruise behavior, and stability control. Magnetic tips attract metal particles. Road grime and moisture degrade connectors. As signals distort, the ECU misjudges speed and load. Shifts become harsh. Downshifts arrive late. The car feels confused. Many assume transmission failure is imminent. In reality, the transmission is reacting to bad data. Cleaning the sensor and restoring clean electrical connections often returns normal behavior instantly. This simple step prevents unnecessary rebuilds and major expense. 5. The sensor that protects the engine knock sensors exist to prevent engine destruction. They listen for detonation and allow the ECU to adjust timing instantly. If their signal weakens, the ECU reacts conservatively. It pulls timing constantly. Power disappears. Engines feel heavy. Acceleration is dull. Throttle response is muted. Drivers think the engine is worn out, but the system is protecting itself. Cleaning the mounting surface and restoring proper torque allows the sensor to detect vibration accurately again. The ECU regains confidence. Power returns without replacing anything. 4. Warning sensors that lie. Oil pressure sensors and fuel level senders are ignored until disaster strikes. Sludge blocks pressure ports. Fuel senders stick or oxidize. Gauges lie calmly. Drivers trust them. Engines fail with no warning because the warning system itself failed. These sensors are not about performance. They are about survival. Regular inspection matters more than replacement schedules. Waiting for failure is often fatal. 3. The sensor nobody cleans. The most replaced sensor is rarely the most failed one. Wiring is the silent killer. Connectors corrode, grounds loosen, pins oxidize, wires fracture internally while insulation looks perfect. The ECU sees unstable signals and blames the sensor. The sensor gets replaced. Nothing changes. Experienced technicians know the difference. They restore signal paths, they clean connectors, they secure grounds, and suddenly the engine behaves normally again. Not because parts were replaced, but because the truth finally reached the computer. 2. Fuel pressure sensors. Fuel pressure sensors quietly control how confidently the ECU delivers power. They monitor real-time pressure in the fuel rail and help the computer decide how long injectors should stay open. When these sensors drift or become contaminated, the ECU begins guessing. A weakened signal often makes the engine feel starved under load, but fine at idle. Acceleration becomes inconsistent. High-speed passing feels risky. Sometimes the car hesitates only when climbing hills or carrying passengers. Drivers blame pumps or injectors, but the pressure itself may be fine. The data is not. Contamination inside the sensor or corrosion at the connector causes delayed or dampened readings. The ECU compensates by limiting fuel delivery as a safety measure. Cleaning the connector, verifying voltage reference, and inspecting the sensor port often restores normal behavior without replacing the pump or injectors. This sensor fails quietly, but when ignored, it causes expensive misdiagnosis. 1. Exhaust gas temperature sensors. Exhaust gas temperature sensors protect engines and emission systems from extreme heat. They are critical on turbocharged and diesel engines, but increasingly common on modern gasoline vehicles as well. These sensors tell the ECU how hot the exhaust stream is, so it can protect turbochargers, catalytic converters, and particulate filters. When these sensors become coated with soot or carbon, they respond slowly. The ECU believes temperatures are higher than reality or rising too fast. In response, it reduces power, limits boost, enriches fuel, or triggers limp mode. Drivers experience sudden power loss without obvious mechanical issues. Because the engine still runs, the sensor is rarely suspected, but contamination prevents accurate heat readings. Cleaning the sensor and ensuring proper grounding often restores correct response. Replacing expensive turbo components or exhaust parts without checking this sensor first leads to massive unnecessary repairs. This sensor doesn't just monitor heat, it decides how much power the engine is allowed to make. Modern engines don't collapse overnight. They drift, they adapt to bad information so smoothly that the problem starts to feel like how the car has always been. That's why this matters, because once you understand that most performance loss comes from corrupted signals, not broken parts, you stop chasing symptoms and start fixing causes. So think about this before you turn the key next time. If the computer can only react to what it's told, how confident are you that it's being told the truth? Tell me in the comments which sensor you thought was the real culprit before watching this. And if you want more breakdowns that explain why cars feel wrong long before they actually fail, subscribe. Because the most expensive problems aren't mechanical, they're informational.